Na ubaya wa Kenya pia ni Kenyans assume everyone else understands jokes. You see, Kenyans, we come from kuna ile kitu ilikuwa inaitwa mchongo when we were growing up. You know, like we don't realize, but I think hiyo mambo ya mchongo really toughened people up, especially when it comes to online wars. Na hiyo hapo ilikuwa ni live and people would get so personal. Yeah, na kulikuwa hakuna kulia, unakubali tu
ukilia.
Yeah. Kulikuwa hakuna kulia. Yeah. So I think that's the culture in Kenya, because sometimes some of these jokes watu hawako serious. They are said in jest, but people take them seriously. The most vicious one is the one where they went and posted an academic record of a member of parliament in Tanzania. I thought that was a bit below the belt. Tanzanian activists came to Kenya and they were caught up by Kenyan security agencies and they were being tortured. What do you think the reaction from Kenyans would have been?
That would be good. Let me guess. Let me say this hypothetically. I don't think they
it
would.
Happened, right? It did happen. It happened earlier during sometime last year. Was it earlier this year? Last year. Actually, the main critic of Mama Samia.
You're talking about Maria Sarungi.
Yeah. Yeah, so it happened, and the way Kenyans were up in arms, Kenyans made noise. She was released.
Kenyans rallied around her.
Yes,
and that's what I was telling some of my Tanzanian friends. You know, like one of the big difference here is that if this was a Tanzanian who had come to Kenya, and Kenyan security agencies arrested him, Kenyans would rally around him very fast. And of course, I'd forgotten that example of Maria Sarungi. And even there was the Ugandan Kiza Besigye. Yeah. When he was arrested in Kenya, you know, Kenyans were up in arms. So again, there was a question on, you know, like the justification of people crossing borders for activism or to go and help another country. And of course, we've talked about the historical cases of where even Tanzania was assisting neighboring countries. But we are where we are. And then, of course, there was the torture allegations against the Tanzanian government on Boniface Mwangi and on the Ugandan activist. And this is starting to look very bad on Tanzania. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where this will go. And when we talk about the East African community, you wonder now, what is the point of having this East African community? Because it's been problems after problems after problems. The things that were supposed, according to the original agreement that was, or this new East African community that was signed in 1999, by now, by 2025, we're supposed to be in a political federation. We're supposed to be having one president.
One country.
Yes, across the region, which I think would be very beneficial overall to the people. But I think also because of these political undertones, there's a lot of narratives that are running both sides. Na ubaya wa Kenya pia ni Kenyans assume everyone else understands jokes. You see, Kenyans, we come from kuna ile kitu ilikuwa inaitwa mchongo when we were growing up. You know, like we don't realize, but I think hiyo mambo ya mchongo really toughened people up, especially when it comes to online wars. Na hiyo hapo ilikuwa ni live and people would get so personal. Yeah, na kulikuwa hakuna kulia, unakubali tu
ukilia.
Yeah. Kulikuwa hakuna kulia. Yeah. So I think that's the culture in Kenya, because sometimes some of these jokes watu hawako serious. They are said in jest, but people take them seriously. The most vicious one is the one where they went and posted an academic record of a member of parliament in Tanzania. I thought that was a bit below the belt. You know, I mean, no,
but also, let even those Tanzanians themselves were brutally attacking someone like Martha Karua. I wish I could get that audio in Bunge.
The
Right?
viciously attacking Martha Karua.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, kaende. Then the two memes that were coming out, AI generated about Samia.
You know, this is I don't know. Tukubali pia Kenya tulienda excess kidogo.
No, again, you know, you don't
wanaenda chini ya basement huko wali heshima ilirushwa nje. Unajua ile
you can't go out there as a president and insinuate that the people who are coming to your country have a sinister motive, because that ideally can put us in Kenya, and even one of those guys in a bad, because ideally the majority of the country is what, CCM, Cindy? Okay, not majority, but the government has power. Let us just agree.
Yes,
government has power. So even with that power, whatever government says goes. What Bandia was explaining to me is that, like, the Chief Justice is selected, not elected.
That's where Kenya was.
Yes.
Remember, the president used to select the Chief Justice.
So here, if you don't dance to the tune, and that is why you were saying, when you were saying that, you know, the government usually dictates mwenendo, how it's gonna go. So when Samia comes out and says what she's saying, insinuating that we are not going to allow, I can't remember, there's some words that she used, we're not going to allow people who have spoiled their country to come here and spoil. That, now this is coming from the president.
Yeah, you know, in a translated version, she said, we have started seeing a trend where some activists from our neighboring countries are trying to meddle in our affairs. If they have been silenced in their own countries, they should not come to disturb our peace here. This was just a small segment of what she said.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you take that, Kenyans read that, wanasema, okay. Alafu wanaona, you have a kina Martha Karua, those ones.
And she also insinuated that Tanzania is the only stable country in the region. So that was the other problematic part.
So now, wanatupa tu masalvo.
Yeah.
Then, we hear reports of one of our citizens, this video of him being kamatwad.
Yeah.
We can say arrested, or he's anachukuliwa.
Yeah.
We see him 4 or 5 days later injured. What do you think? In as much as maybe there's some people who support Boni, who people don't support Boni, and don't forget, you know, there's this compound that with, like, now, for example, you know, like the attempted abduction of the Tanzanian writer.
Yes.
In Kenya, like, right? The journalist, the journal. So there's so much happening. There's so much going on, right? And people are like, okay, you know what? Apana.
Now, if it
and
was,
then it's Kasongo.
If it was vice versa, Tanzanian activists came to Kenya and they were caught up by Kenyan security agencies and they were being tortured. What do you think the reaction from Kenyans would have been?
That would be good. Let me guess. Let me say this hypothetically. I don't think they would.
It happened, right? It did happen it happened earlier during sometime last year. Was it earlier this year, last year? Actually, the main critic of Mama Samia.
You're talking about Maria Sarungi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it happened. And the way Kenyans were up in arms, Kenyans made noise. She was released.
Kenyans rallied around her.
Yes.
And that's what I was telling some of my Tanzanian friends. You know, like, one of the big difference here is that if this was a Tanzanian who had come to Kenya and Kenyan security agencies arrested him, Kenyans would rally around him very fast. And of course, I'd forgotten that example of Maria Sarungi. And even there was the Ugandan Kiza Besigye. Yeah.
Yeah.
When he was arrested in Kenya, Kenyans were up in arms.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Didn't Martha Karua go and defend him in court?
Besigye.
Besigye.
Yeah, he was going to defend Besigye in court.
She went.
Yeah, the other problem that we have in within the East African community, we are supposed to allow people to work across borders, especially like within the legal field. But Tanzania ni kama pia wamekata. There's people like PLO Lumumba,
Yeah.
who has like certification to practice there, but I don't know exactly.
There or Zanzibar, it doesn't matter.
No. I don't know whether Zanzibar has a different bar that you have to pass. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But PLO says Tanganyika, so maybe he's limited to the mainland.
Yeah. Okay.
And not to the island.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you see the likes of PLO. PLO is one of those personalities who's been visiting Tanzania a lot and talking a lot about Tanzania and some of the good side they have. The one thing that I'd like PLO to also do, and he does a very good job, is also talk about the challenges. One area where I'm going to critique PLO is that he will never throw any critique. He was friends, of course, with John Pombe Magufuli, and he will always talk about the positives, which is good, which I think a lot of Kenyans need to know and they need to understand. And there's a lot of positives. I think their politics, despite being one party, they're a bit more disciplined in how policies are made and how things are done, despite the fact that it's all through one party. There's a bit more sense of discipline, which there's a lack of in Kenya. So I think there's a couple of things that we can also learn from them. But then with this coming election, Mama Samia has to be very careful, because if things are not done in the right way, let's not think that what happened in Kenya cannot happen in Tanzania.
I don't think anything will happen in Tanzania.
Now, if you've been I have been in Tanzania during an election, not mainland Zanzibar. I've been in Zanzibar during an election.
Zanzibar wale ni Mauru.
Yeah.
Au mainland Dongori.
Yeah, sasa in Zanzibar, huko ndo niliona moto. Ilikuwa ni 2000, was it 2005? I think it was the 2005 election. Huko niliona moto. And it was suppressed very quick. The thing about an island like Zanzibar, it's so easy to suppress protests because it's an island, and what they do is they disconnect power, especially kama ni usiku. They disconnect power, alafu jeshi wanamwagwa kila pahali. By the time mnaamka kwenda kuswali asubuhi, mnakutana na majeshi kila kona. So yeah, so whatever you are trying to organize, you can't.
Disorganized.
Yeah, it's totally disorganized because it's a small, and the areas where people are living, like Palestine town, it's very easy to surround it and just monitor block to block. So it's very easy to contain them. Uko si kama nini, uko si kama Kenya. Kenya it's very difficult to contain a protest because it will come from all directions. Ukishika huku au wengine huku wameanza. Again,